So, good day, ma'am. I'm the Lord C. Pusad, first College of Criminal Justice Education. This is my report, and my report is about weighted voting system. So, weighted voting system. Weighted voting system introduction to weighted voting objectives. Define weighted voting. Use shorthand form or for weighted voting. Define dictator, veto power, and dummy and weighted voting system. Weighted voting. Weighted voting gives some voters different amounts of influence or weight consuming the outcome of an election. This is often common practice when it comes to corporate shareholder meetings, when shareholders' voting weight is based upon how many shares they own. The more shares someone owns, the more weight of their vote. The conditions that must be met for a winner might be a simple majority, but there could also be different requirements to select winner. Vocabulary why for weighted voting. Each individual or entity casting a vote is called a player in the election. They're often noted as P1 is called player 1. So we have player 1, player 2, player 3. Pn, where N is the total number of voters. Each player is given a weight, which usually represents how many votes they get. The quota is the minimum weighted needed for the vote to pass or weight needed for the proposal to be approved. A weighted voting system will often be represented in a shorthand form. So, this one is quota y sub 1 and y sub 2, y sub 3. That was Wn. In this form, Q is the quota, W is the weight for player 1. Player 1, y sub 2 is the weight for player 2, and so on. Write a possible weighted voting system for the following situation. So, example, a company has 5 shareholders. The shareholders hold the following ownership stake in the company: 30%, 25%, 20%, 15%, 10%. They are trying to decide if they should invest in a new product line to grow company. The company bylaws state that a majority of the ownership, more than 50%, has to approve the decision. So we have example here. So last 51, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10. So these 5 numbers is from here. A company has 5 shareholders, so that was the 5 numbers. So next, in order to have a meaningful weighted voting system, limits on the quota must exist. Limits on the quota. The quota must be more than 1/2 the total number of votes. The quota can't be larger than the total number of votes. Dictator. A player will be a dictator if their weight is equal to or greater than the quota. The dictator can also block any proposal from passing. The other players cannot reach quota without the dictator. So, example, 20, 21, 6, 3. So, the answer is the player 1 is a dictator because it's not blocking the player 1. So, the player 1 is a dictator. That's our first example. So, we have here. A player has a veto power if their support is necessary for the quota to be reached. It is possible for more than one player to have veto power or for number player to have veto power. So we have example here. 30, 19, 15, and 11. The player 1 has a veto power because is the one high, because 30 is the highest number in the quota. So, second example. No player has veto power because they are equal, not totally high number. So, no player has veto power in the second example. Dummy. A player is a dummy if their vote is never essential for a group to reach quota. So, 16 is the quota, and 12, 10, and 2. The player 3 is a dummy player because she's the smallest number in the line. So, we have a situation here. Consider the weighted voting system. 18 is the quota, so 18, 8, 8, 2. So, there's a question. This is our first example to the processing of quota. So, how many players are there? So, there are 4 players, which is the 8, the 3 8s, and 2. So there will be 4 players. What is the total number weight of votes? So the total votes is 26. So we use additional to add 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 2 equals 26. So we have 26 here. Next, what is the quota? Our quota is number 18. Right there in the first line. Identify the dictators. There are no dictators. Identify any players with veto power. No players have veto power. Last, identify any dummy players. There are no dummy players in this situation. Second example. Consider the weighted voting system. So, our quota is 16, 18, 5, 3, 3, 1. How many players are there? So, we have 5 players, which is the 18, 5, 3, 3, and 1. So, we have 5 players. What is the total number weight of votes? So, the total votes are 30. So, we should add 18 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1 equals to 30. Next, what is the quota? Our quota is 16. Right there. 16. That was 16. Identify and dictators. Player 1 is a dictator because that number is higher than quota. Identify any players with veto power. Player 1 has a veto power because she's the highest number in the line. Identify any dummy players. Player 2, 3, and 4, and 5 are dummy players. Next situation. So, we have here a problem. Consider the weighted voting system. So, we have quota 14, 10, 6, 2, and 2. So, what is the smallest value that the quota can take? So, we should add 14 plus 2 plus 10 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2 equals 34. Bring down 2. So, we have 34 here, the total of 14 and 10 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2. So, bring down 2. So, divide 34 divided by 2 equals 17. So, we have 17 here. Right there, 17. The smallest value of quota is 18. So, the largest value of quota is 34. What is the value of quota if at least 2/3 of the votes are required to pass a motion? So, we have it. 2 bring down 3 divided by times 34, bring down 1 equals 68. So, 68 divided by 3, we have 22.7. If at least 2/3 of the votes are required, quota is 23. Next example. Our quota here is 60. So, 30, 28, 22, 15, 7, and 6. So, we should add our 6 players, which is the 6, 28, 22, 15, 7, and 6. So, we should add them. 30 plus 28 plus 22 plus 15 plus 7 plus 6 equals to 108. So, our veto here is 108. So, our N is 6 players, which is the 30, 28. Our quota is 60. So, we have a last example of our reporting, ma'am. So, example here is 60 is our quota. So, 35, 28, 22, 15, 10, and 5. That would be our 6 players. So, we should add those. So, 35 plus 28 plus 22 plus 15 plus 10 plus 5. So, we have 115 here. So, we should add 115 there. 115. I forgot to input. So, that would be all for my video reporting, ma'am. Thank you and good day.